everybody, to another great episode of Real Life Matters. Of course, I'm your host, DBoss, and I'm just telling you that we are in CareVision is in 28 different countries, including the UK. We're through the States. Here in Canada, you could see it on Bell 5, channel 658. You could see me at 5 days a week from Monday to Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 12 a.m. And also, you could encourage you to watch the other programs that are also on CareVision, so you could see what other programs are going on. It's a 24-hour station, so you got all types of programming that's going on with CareVision. And if you want to, you can also subscribe to the channel. Go to their website and you could subscribe. I think it's like a dollar or $2 or something like that. And that's not a lot of money to subscribe. So you can see all the wonderful programming that they have on there. But anyways, for the last few weeks, I've been talking about laughing is healthy for you. And I'm hoping everybody is following through with that. So laugh about 15 minutes a day, or, as much as you can to keep yourself youthful. It releases all the endorphins that are in your body. It makes you feel a lot better. It also lowers your blood pressure. It releases stress. It also can tone your abs. I'm not saying that you have to stop going to the gym, but you can do that, and it'll help it keep it toned. And it also warms up your vocal cords if you're doing any public speaking engagements, or you're singer, or you're in a choir or anything like that. Laughing helps build your voice, warm up your cords so you could speak all the time. And just do your due diligence and do that. So I'm just hoping that everybody is following through with that I told you guys to do. And if anything, you don't have anybody to laugh with, you can also just turn on a sitcom, something's funny. They even have, if you have to go to extreme, they even have laughing classes, So anyways, I have a very special guest here, and he's supposed to open your mind, and he's going to be he's going to take us inside of the minds, these masterminds of the entrepreneurs, and we're going to see what is going on. And he has a book, and he's training people, and he's doing all kinds of stuff. But we're going to find out and get to know this gentleman that's coming on here. So with no other further ado, I introduce to you Neil SEEMAN.
Thank you, DBoss. It's a great pleasure to be on this show with you and meet your viewers around the world. And hey, you are a classic entrepreneur. I'm so proud of what you're doing, what you've done. And so you're the perfect person to share this story with, and why I've written this book, Accelerated Minds. So thank you.
Okay, well, here at Real Life Matters, we always like to know everybody's background and their cultural background, where they come from. So what is yours, Neil?
Yeah, thanks. I'm a bit of a mutt. I'm a second generation Canadian. So my parents, one side Poland, the other side Ukraine, emigrated during the Second World War. But I have everything in me. I'm Jewish by faith. A lot of different philosophic influences in my life. And I'm continually redefining myself and reinventing myself.
You're reinventing yourself. I like that one.
Yeah.
I guess that's going to go a lot with the book that you've written. So is this your first book?
It's my first general audience book, and it's been an interesting journey, right? So I'm a mental health advocate. So my earlier books were on mental health in the brain and why we get depressed, obesity and mental health for an academic audience. And now I've written this first book for a general audience. And what's really interesting about it is everyone wants to talk about entrepreneurship and what makes, people like you and I, entrepreneurs, tick, and why sometimes we go off the rails and have all these issues. And sometimes the audiences for this book are audiences I never imagined, especially young people. I have some theories. Women in particular, new immigrants, I find to Canada are talking with me about this book. So I find this experience really, really interesting.
Okay. So, because to become an entrepreneur, it's very, a lot of people think it's, it's easy. You just jump up one day and you just say, you know what, I'm just going to do. sometimes sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
You just end up, because maybe you've maxed out of in the job society for where you can go. So then all of a sudden, then you just roll out into it. So then here you are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. People spin into entrepreneurship for different reasons, but my general view is that to sustain yourself as an entrepreneur, you have to be someone who's building something for yourself, for your community, something you really care about, of lasting value. So the message I'm trying to send in this book is, these are the entrepreneurs we really need to care about, and they're the future of our prosperity. We depend on them for jobs and our economy. But a lot of them are having a lot of problems, like a lot of challenges, mental health wise. So I'm looking at some of the things we can do to support them as a society, as a community, and giving them some tips and advice at the personal level.
And then plus your book has come out at a good time, because a lot of people, entrepreneurs, had to rethink themselves during the COVID, the 3 years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, entrepreneurship is on an absolute tear around the world, right? And
Yeah.
and it's a real sign of human resilience, right? You'd think that entrepreneurship would have suffered amid COVID, but it's actually quite the opposite. And in Canada, we are giving the Americans a run for their money in terms of percentage of people who are entrepreneurs, driven to entrepreneurship. So it's taking off on a tear. There's a lot of theories around why that is. Some people think it's because people want more control over their lives now, that it's been so turned upside down by COVID. Some people suggest that it's because people want more meaning in their lives. And I think there's some truth to both of those explanations.
So because a lot of people either had to reinvent themselves from COVID, and they had to, or some of them, or people just birthed themselves in COVID, so it just all depends which one, which one they came from, which lane.
Yeah. There are many lanes to entrepreneurship. Once you land there, it's the best job ever, but it's also, as you know, right? It's high highs, low lows, twice in one day, right? And so, how do you do to manage that? What do you do to manage that, right? And that's what we're all wrestling with. A lot of entrepreneurs, we don't really talk about it that much. We don't talk about our mental health struggles because oftentimes it's sort of seen as a sign of weakness to our customers, to our investors. And I hope to change that. That's what I'm trying to change with this book. I'm trying to open up a conversation where we can be honest about some of the challenges we have. Oftentimes we wear the burdens of our employees on our sleeves, and that's great. Like, we're really bonded with our employees. I think, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of people during COVID, they trusted their employers more than anybody else, which is great. And I think there's reasons for that. But, small business owners, they often don't talk to anybody about the mental health struggles that they endure.
Yeah, but it's people don't understand. A lot of people say, "Oh, you work for yourself." They think it's easy,
Yeah.
Oh, you work for yourself. Oh, you get to do it. No, you don't. You have to. You have to work. You're tired just like everybody else when you finish the day. You're constantly, your mind's always going. So people don't get it. They think, oh, it's easy. Oh, you just can do what you want. No, it's not about, yes, to an extent, but not really, because you got to keep trending, and you got to keep up. You got to know what a lot of stuff to do as an entrepreneur. It's not like you're just working for somebody and you got what you do. Okay, you're an accountant, or you're the communications person. This is but when you're an entrepreneur, you have all that.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to go beyond yourself. You got to and it's fun when you look back at all the risks that you've taken, and that whether you succeed or fail, right? And that's what's so beautiful about it. And the truth is, most entrepreneurial ventures don't succeed to great fortune, but you do accomplish an enormous things if you set out in a deliberate path to make a difference. And those are the entrepreneurs that I really care about. Like, don't get me wrong, I care about all people, but I think that, you know, the media, they tend to give too much attention, the financial media in particular, to sort of these 20-something tech wizards and all that. But the reality is that 99% of entrepreneurs are doing like a million other different things, right? Like, they're doing podcasts, and they're doing, you know, they're artists, they're creatives, and like artists and sculptors. I have a lot of artists in my family, and they're entrepreneurs. And I think we need to like take back that definition of entrepreneurship, because we all worship entrepreneurs. We all love them, right, as a concept. But I think a lot of people who are artistic, they don't see themselves as entrepreneurs because that the society doesn't like kind
accept it, but they are. So if you work
absolutely,
for yourself.
absolutely. By my definition, they're fiery spirits, they're accelerated minds, they're always thinking about how they can make a difference for them, for their community, for their loved ones, and they're building something of lasting value, right? So that's my definition. And so I'm trying to embrace that with this book. Yeah.
All right. So how did you come up with the name Accelerated Minds? You know, and also show the people the book there.
Yeah. Thanks.
It's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. No, thank you. So the title, I guess, was maybe workshopped by the marketing folks. I'm not entirely sure, but that being said, look, what I use, what I think what happened is it was unscientific. So I use the word accelerated a lot in the book, and for good reason, because a lot the reality, we know scientifically that a lot of people who embark on entrepreneurship have an accelerated mind. It's called like frenetic. It's over. Some people call it overactive brain syndrome. Some people associate it with conditions like ADHD. And so because I was using it so much in the book, it just was kind of like a natural title, but the subtitle is also important too. It's called, the full title is Accelerated Minds, Unlocking the Fascinating, Inspiring, and Often Destructive Impulses That Drive the Entrepreneurial Brain. So it's like, hey, these are really good things that are going on inside your brain, but they can turn negative really quickly unless you know how to manage that.
Okay. So when you put this, how long did it take you to put this novel together?
Yeah, so it's fun. It took me a long time. Like it took me 2.5 years. I mean, what really motivated me to write the book was my father's death. He died. My father's a very famous brain scientist. I'm the son of two scientists. So my dad, Philip SEEMAN, he focused on how this chemical dopamine in the brain works and how it can cause mental health disorders. And so he died in January 2021. And my mother specializes in women's mental health and how, and how estrogens in the brain, like affect women's mental health. So together they were sort of this power duo, right? And so I'm the son of two psychiatric brain researchers. And so after my dad passed away, I knew that I was going to step down as CEO of the company I started. It's now a publicly traded internet company. I knew I was going to step down eventually, and I wanted to put this on paper. This was a story that really needed to be told, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to like bridge what my dad had learned from the science of the brain to what I had observed about all these entrepreneurs around me and how many of them were struggling with all these conditions. And I felt, okay, like if they could understand what was going on in their brain, that would give them a little more empowerment and more understanding of what they could do to manage it. Because unfortunately and tragically, there's been some like tragic deaths of really, well-known entrepreneurs that just went too far too quickly and didn't slow themselves down. Right.
So for you, you had the scientific, you have that in the book there too, from your mom and your dad. And did you get any other people that were specialists in this thing to have their input in the book?
Oh, absolutely. So I interviewed famous investors around the world, famous entrepreneurs across all different disciplines, artists. creatives. I went back in my family history to really try to understand myself. There's a lot of me in this book, which was actually quite awkward and uncomfortable at the beginning because I wasn't used to talking about myself and my own mental health struggles. Like I, I mean, look, we can laugh about it, but I've had a cute, they started off as temper tantrums when I was a teenager, and my parents kept blaming it on this chemical called dopamine, which I say in the book was my second spoken word. It's the second word I spoke as a child. And and then acute panic attack. So I talk a lot about that. And and it was really actually pretty empowering to do, because when you start talking about it, then you realize there's all these other entrepreneurs out there who are also having these struggles. And then when you talk about it, it gives them, the vulnerability to sort of come out and talk about it.
All right. So can you give us maybe like one example of something of a stress that a lot of entrepreneurs have, like that's common?
I'll give you a weird one that a lot of people don't know about. It's called success depression. So so as you know, like as an entrepreneur, most of the time you fail, but sometimes you really succeed objectively by any definition, right? Financially, or maybe who knows, maybe you sell your company, and then you have a sense of grief, a sense of loss, because all of a sudden you lose touch with your identity, who you are. I mean, I know dozens of incredibly financially successful entrepreneurs who've really struggled with this thing called success depression, because all of a sudden, like who they were, their identity as CEO, founder, they no longer have that anymore. And then they're struggling like, what am I? And so that is actually something that a lot of people struggle with. It's kind of a weird one. But there's a host of other challenges. I mean, anxious depression, a whole range of things that go along with reactivity, right? Taking things too personally. Like the more of a values-based entrepreneur you are, the more kind of you're building something for your community and people you care about, as opposed to just trying to make money really fast, the more you tend to be someone who is very personally affected. For example, when an employee is going through a really, really difficult time, and that can be very emotionally wearing on an entrepreneur.
Okay, so that's what I never heard of that one. Success depression, and obviously, you gave a perfect example. So you have these. So is the book gone? Is it like case by case scenarios, or do you have it like as a story format, or what? How do the chapters go?
Yeah, it's a story format, so it's very personal. It talks from the personal about where I came from and my family's escape from Europe during the Second World War, and all the scientists and sort of entrepreneurial scientists in my family, and why they studied what they studied inside the brain. And then it goes into just kind of explaining what this chemical is called dopamine, the pathway for risk and rewards. Why do we take risk? Why do we pursue these risks when we're entrepreneurs? So I explain that, and then I go into a number of personal stories about entrepreneurs, and then I go into sort of philosophy and psychology around how we can manage these challenges as entrepreneurs. And then I also talk about what we can do as a society to kind of slow the system down. Like right now, I feel part of the problem is, if we really care about prosperity, what capitalism needs to do is we need to be looking out more long-term as opposed to short-term. And so there's a little too much what I call short-termism in entrepreneurship today. And sort of it forces entrepreneurs to just move too fast, too quick. And that can be important, but it can also, if you're not measured, like you talked about laugh therapy is really, really important. It's actually, like, seriously, it's actually, if you can do that, like, oh, wow, that's so good. But like even as you say, like even watching a funny show like Seinfeld or something like that's
Whatever
valuable.
you want.
Yeah, whatever works. But there's a number of tricks and hacks that I talk about in the book.
Okay. So yeah, so that's something that's, you talk about a lot of stuff there. So it's very, I believe that a lot of people are going to learn something from their novel.
I really hope so, right? Like, I mean, for example, like some of the things that I'm hearing back from people who are reading the book is they're saying, I keep hearing this phrase. I keep hearing people say, "Oh wow, like I'm seeing myself in the book. Like I'm seeing myself in the book, right? Like I never realized that that's why I act the way I act. Like there, and I hear some heart-wrenching stories that are really fascinating. Like, so there was a guy who called me up because there was a focus on this on my book that I wrote in the Toronto Star, and I had somebody I was speaking with who said, "Hey, you saved my marriage." And I said, what are you talking? That was really interesting. What are you talking about? And he said, well, look, he said, my partner, I've been trying to explain to her for 25 years, like what I'm going through, like, and all the difficulties and all the challenges and all that. But when she saw you put down the statistics, like the actual statistics, and reference the science of it, then she kind of understood. And then he said, like, we cried together, we laughed together, and it's like it's been very like he said, like he was very grateful to me, and frankly, I was very grateful to him, because like this is a really interesting story. And if I can just honestly, if I can just touch like a handful of people in that way, that is so very personally rewarding to me.
Right. All right. So, just show everybody the book again. Let's see it.
Yeah, thanks.
Is that you at the back?
No. That's not me. I don't know who that is. But there's a few little details here that are important. And then, I find marketing and sales a really fascinating science, right? So like there's smoke coming out of the ears, right? Because he's moving too fast. And then the words accelerated minds, they're moving too, right? They're moving. They're constantly in motion.
Wow. I didn't even notice that till you told me.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, and it's really interesting. I'm actually learning all about the economics of the book publishing world right now as well, which is really interesting to me as well.
All right. So are there any shout outs that you want to give anybody from your book?
Oh, well, look, I'm always grateful to my amazing publisher, Ken White. He is the founder. He's an entrepreneur extraordinaire of Sutherland House Books. Great stories from so many different walks of life that he produces, and just a range of my colleagues. Obviously, my spouse, my wife, Sareed, my kids, Davy and Dory, who are always trying to make sense of their crazy dad, and what makes me do what I do. And I maybe a shout out to you, DBoss. Like I'm such a lover of kind of multimedia entrepreneurialism, and when I heard you're in 28 countries, and wow, like there's all this really exciting entrepreneurship happening, and unless you're out there, you don't really learn about it.
Yeah, that's true. So what's next? Are you gonna write something else, or
no, absolutely. So I'm already onto my next book. It's about, I'll just give you a little teaser. It's like a hero. It's like a hero and villain story. Like, and it's got some international, let's say, crime involved. But it's look, I love to write. I love to read great fiction, great nonfiction. So as I say, it's been a reinvention process for me. But I love that. I'm still involved in all aspects of entrepreneurialism, but at the same time, I'm never going to stop writing.
All right. So if people have to get a hold and get this book, Where can they go and get the book from you?
Yeah, thanks. So they can go directly to the publisher website, sutherlandhousebooks.com, or they can go to Amazon. It's any
It's
online bookseller. It's in physical bookstores around the world. And yeah, I mean, it's getting some attention. We got Next Big Idea Club in the United States has recognized it as a must-read book. Yeah, the literary world is taking. I mean, I'm actually like I gotta tell you, I'm really surprised by the reception it's getting, and I hope to have more. You know, I really it's resonating with different people for different reasons.
right.
But I think the main thing is people are trying, like, people see themselves in it, right? Everyone in some manner or form is an entrepreneur. It's just like, how do you let that, like, how do you manage that, tame that beast when it comes out?
That's true. So if people have to find you on social media so they can like you, where can they find you at?
Yeah, you know, well, I'm on LinkedIn. You just look at my name. I'm actually on Twitter, but I don't use it too much.
Okay.
But,
So you're not on Instagram.
yeah, no, I don't. You know what? I'm not on Instagram. I gotta tell you, like, but yeah, but you can, and you can find my publisher, Sutherland House. They're on Twitter. They're on all the socials.
Okay. Well, that's good enough. As long as I can find it. If people do get the book, it's a must read and a must have. It's rated.
And you can, right. And you can go to my website. I've actually got my own author website now. It's really cool. It's called neilseeman.com. It's just my name.com.
Okay, that's fine.
Got endorsements.
Website, you're on media.
I'm sorry?
You are on media.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, you know, when you got to come back when you create the other book, you know, just reach out because we want to keep up with you and see what you're doing, Neil. So
thank you, DBoss. It's a great honor. I love this conversation. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I do want to thank Neil. Guys, go and get the book. It's going to help you. You can relate to something to yourself in there, and, you know, and you can learn about, and you know, we learned one thing today about success. Success, you know, you can have success depression. Even though I know it's hard to see. So I was thinking, am I saying the right thing? Then I was like, okay, success depression. So we learned about that, and you know, and he told us a little tip, but you can learn more stuff. So, you know, I encourage people to go out there, you know, purchase the book. You can probably relate a lot of stuff in yourself to with you know how Neil wrote the book, and you know, give some feedback. Now you guys have an opportunity to give some feedback, put things in the comments so you can read the comments. He could, you know, answer, respond back to you and stuff like that. That's what they're here for, to do. So, you know, people like to hear the comments. Okay, well, you know, they like it. There's something, maybe they didn't like this part. It doesn't matter. You just put the comment in because he's there to, you know, he'll answer you.
Absolutely. I'm all out there. You can find my email, everything online.
Yeah. So, all right. So I do want to thank the viewers tonight for tuning in with Neil Seaman's journey with this book. So good night and bye for now.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thank you.